All right, welcome everybody. Welcome to MVConnect and Power BI. So my name is Patrick Payne. I'm the Chief Technology Evangelist here at Zumasys. Quick background on me is I've been with Zumasys for about 2.5 years. Before that, I did about 20 years managing a pretty good sized D3 pick shop. And my real good background was integrating the system with modern technology, usually talking to other systems, bringing in new UIs, .NET, Angular, and having to usually build out my own middle layers to make all that stuff work. About 2.5 years ago, I came on board with Zumasys, and my role here was, one, going around and talking about these capabilities, and number two, having a lot of involvement with our product development to really build out tools the way that I kind of wish they worked when I was doing it on the other side, and build out tools that really do integrate much easier with the new products. So that's my quick background. The presentation we're doing here, our goals are to let's talk about what is Power BI. If you haven't used it yet or seen it yet, I highly recommend you go and take a look at it, and we'll talk about that. Number two, what is MVConnect? The product that we offer to help connect Power BI and other stuff to your pick data. How to connect your Power BI to your pick data with MVConnect. Demonstrate some Power BI features. I will tell you I'm not a Power BI expert, but I can go through and show you some reports and stuff I've created. It's a pretty phenomenal product. We'll look at Power BI Services, which is one of the features of Power BI that really makes things online and webified. We'll talk about the roadmap of where Power BI is going, the roadmap for MVConnect, and then we'll have a final call to action. So with that said, let's jump in and start taking a look at this. So number one, what is Power BI? Power BI really isn't one thing. It is a whole suite of solutions that Microsoft has put out, that the main goal is to let you create some pretty rich and interactive reports, dashboards, KPI metrics, and really basically analytics on your products. And the real truth is that Microsoft always had, with their Excel product, pretty much the reporting tool that everybody uses. And so really kind of the core of what they did was leverage that technology and the techniques used in there, because it was really easy for people to do pretty good reporting in Excel, and build up a new set of products using those techniques, and then come up with a way to make it webified and shareable. So first, let's talk about the different pieces of Power BI. Probably the most important one is what's called Power BI Desktop. Power BI Desktop, first of all, is a desktop application. It installs, it runs just like Excel or anything else, runs right on a computer. Important thing is that this particular part of the product is Windows only. But the nice thing is it is completely free. So this is the core product. This is what you typically would load up and build dashboards, import data, create all your reports and your analytics here. And it works a lot like Excel. In fact, I'm pretty sure it really is mostly Excel, just restructured a little bit. And it works just like Excel. You'll import it, you'll make all these analytics, you'll save it as a file, you can send it to somebody else, they can open it up and see the same exact analytics, the same way as if you were to do it in Excel. It's just structurally does things in a different order. It starts with the Sheets page where you normally would do your charts and stuff, and the actual data and the importing stuff are sub-tabs, where in Excel you're really dealing with the sheet first and then usually creating second sheets to put your charts and stuff. Power BI Service is really the web side of this product, and it's all within the Office 365 suite. And so once you create your Power BI report, you can upload it to your Office 365 Power BI service, and it now becomes a fully web-based reporting analytics package. And then a lot of new features come in. So a lot of times when people look at all this and say, what do you mean it's free? Well, this is where Microsoft really starts making their money. So if you want to really do interactive sharing, make it a web, make it a widget to put into something else, this is where they start making their money. So everything you do on the Power BI side with desktop is free. You want to start using these other features, you'll have to start getting into the Office 365 subscriptions. One huge benefit of this is that when it's up here, you can actually build reports out of the web product. So if you're on a Mac at this level, you could go in to the website and produce reports and dashboards from this part of the product. It's really focusing on sharing and collaboration. It adds in the concept of dashboards, which is what you'd usually go to a third-party product to get. So you can create executive dashboards that tie down to the reports. You can build new reports. And it has the capability to do all the data refreshing. So again, it can tie into your data sources quite a few numerous ways they're offering and refresh the Office 365 suite directly. Whereas if you're using the Power BI product desktop, it's really working like Excel and you're connecting to the data source from each Excel or each Power BI desktop version and updating. If you're in the Office 365 service, it's one refresh for everybody that's using the reports and the dashboards. But again, it usually is going to require some form of Office 365 subscriptions. I'm not going to go into the detail here. There's different levels that give you different capabilities, different size of data sets. Microsoft has grids that will show you how all that stuff works. And then the third leg of this is the Power BI mobile. Once you've created your Power BI charts and dashboards, put them up into Office 365 Power BI services, then they have an app for both iOS and Android that you can view all your reports with their full functionality, drilling down, looking at data, seeing all your charts on your mobile devices. It handles all the formats, keeps all that stuff working, all the different interactions you can build in the Power BI, they all continue to work. Now, Power BI as a suite does have quite a few other modules and pieces that make this entire thing work. And some of the stuff you may have actually already seen. For example, Power Query, which is in Excel, is where it's going out and getting the data. So when I show you later us going and retrieving data for Power BI, everything I show you is actually available in Excel because they're both using the same tool, Power Query. Power Pivot is a feature that you have available in there where once you get your data in, you can create pivot tables, basically kind of cubes. All the same stuff you do in Excel, you can create in Power BI against your same data, and all that stuff moves up to the Power BI service. Power View, to be honest, is the Power BI service with its web-based versions of your charts. That was available about, I think, 4 to 5 years ago in Excel. The other neat features is they'll have Power BI gateways. They have 2 to 3 different products that if you can't expose your data directly on the internet, they'll create gateways that will assist the Office 365 suite to be able to reach into your network and get this data. Power BI Embedded, if you do not wish to use Microsoft's website, but just include those charts in your own personal website, here's where Power BI Embedded comes into place. It also has programming interfaces. There's an R language and an M language for you to actually program and extend these reports. If you're in Excel, I think these things are all replacements for the VBA language where you could do coding in Excel. These are the options in these products. Power BI Report Server is if you really want all these features of Power BI Service, but you don't wish to go into Office 365 public cloud, you can still do it on-prem. And so this is an on-prem server that does all the same features. And then there's a whole store around this. So it's not a closed product. So with the M and R languages, people can build new visuals, new charts, new analytics, and put it up in a store, and you can download those and add those right to your Power BI desktop, and then those will roll right up into the Power BI service. So again, it's a very comprehensive package, and it's a very key and top goal of Microsoft is this area right here. So you're going to see more things added as they improve the product, and we'll talk on the roadmap area a little bit about that. Now, what does this have to do with MVConnect, and why are we talking about this? What MVConnect is a product that we put out that adds a RESTful web server to your multi-value PIC database. And I have other videos that talk in depth about RESTful, but RESTful, just real quickly, is a ability, it's newer ways to share data between different systems, and it's an open standard that everybody is pretty much moving to now. It's basically the replacement for SOAP and our old legacy connectors like MVConnect or JRCS or UniObjects and other systems. And what we do with MVConnect is we add a web server directly to your PIC box, and we put in a toolkit for your PIC developer to be able to expose PIC data and PIC code out via RESTful services. It's an open, very open protocol, no proprietary stuff here, so your normal admins will understand what we're doing, and normal security tools understand what we're doing here. Again, it's a code toolbox for the PIC developer, very open, very flexible. And what your goal here is to build reusable services. So when you create RESTful services, and this is the goal of this presentation, is that you're able to reuse what you've done. And so normally I was going around and showing people this to build a new UI. So you want to create a web page version of your old green screen application. But that same work that the PIC guy did to build the RESTful service could also be used, for example, to allow an external service to call your system. And a good example of that would be if you have an e-commerce website and they want to check inventory or automatically submit orders into your system, you would create a RESTful service to do that. It's the same RESTful service you were probably calling for your new UI to put an order in or check things. So again, that's that reusability. And then what I'm doing in this presentation is showing that same work that you've done there, that Power BI sees your system now as a known data source and can actually query in real time your PIC data, which is usually a tough thing we always had, was how do we get PIC data out into these other platforms? So again, what's the goal of MVConnect and how is this all happening is, PIC data is an object. And for those of you who've seen the raw PIC data, it's there on the left, and this is the issue we have when we talk normally historically to other systems, is that we have an object model. It's from 20 years ago, but it's an object model. And the problem is attributes 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14, the items you see on the left side of the screen there, is our lines on our order. And it's multi-valued out. So on 10, you can see that there were 3 orders, and the first one is taking product 2, the second one's getting product 5, the third one's getting product 32. We're storing multiple rows of data in one record, and that's not the way SQL works, and that's not the way Excel works. They want all that flattened, and that's always our issue. Well, what I'm showing you on the right is what objects are and what JSON is all about, which is a format where you can show the same complicated data that we can do. And this is what everyone's switching to. So if you look here on the right, you can see the same data on the right that was on the left, but it's described, meaning I know what the order ID and the customer ID is. And the most important piece is when you look down at the items part, you can see our repeating rows. And what we do is give you a toolkit for your PIC developer to do the transformation in PIC from that left screen to that right screen and expose it out. And what you get then, and for the technical people, you can see an example of the code. It's not a lot of code. We do the work here to transform it from PIC data over to an object, and it gets exposed out, and then you can go off and start building a new application. And here's an example of for this example application where it's the Northwind database, where I'm starting to build a mobile app to enter and view and do that information. So I originally would have built all this data to build this application. What we're going to do in this presentation now, and I'm going to do a lot of interactive work because I always prefer to actually show it to you, is we're going to go and show you now in Power BI how I'm going to go and get the same data that I produced to generate this data, these screens, and I'm going to use Power BI and get that same data, pull into Power BI and start doing some reporting on it. So let me switch this down, and what I'm going to do is I'm jump over to our pick system, and I'm going to first show you the pick data. So here I'm in a classic pick system, and I have my Northwind database. And this is typically how in pick we're going to access the data. So we go here, pull out a few fields. And here's our data. And right here is our classic problem. Pick is these are our multi-values. The RESTful service that has already been created, and you saw a quick sample of the code, allows me now to go up to the web browser and pull up the data right from a web call. So that same example I showed you earlier, I'm now looking at the data, and you can see our repeated rows. And when I talk about reusability, this is the key thing here, is that everybody now understands, be it .NET or be it any of your programming languages, and now Power BI and Excel recognize and understand this data format. They don't understand our multi-values, but they understand this. So this is the data that my UI was using to produce that application. And now I'm going to jump into Power BI and go and grab the exact same information. So this is Power BI. You have your 3 tabs here. This is what I would normally call your second tab. You would normally create in Excel, where you would normally drop charts that you're making. They start with that because this is a canvas. This is what we're really trying to produce, is charts. The second tab is really the sheets. So once I import data, you're going to see them in here, and it's really our data. So in Excel, our sheet 1 was usually where our data was. This one is on the second tab. The third tab is where it will go in and let you create associations between different tables. So in Excel, we normally had to do like a lookup. So if we had, we brought in our orders, but then we had another employee chart that we brought in and put on a second tab, and we wanted to look up information to get like a birth date, you would have to do a formula and look it up. In Power BI, you'll just create an association like you would do with a SQL database, and it will do it all for you. And then over here on the right, you'll see that it has all the chart controls that you're used to seeing in Excel, and you start building them out. But the first thing we need to do is go get our data. So this is what's called Power Query. And again, you go into Excel and go do its get data, you're going to see the exact same tool with just different colors. And what we do is we're going to go in here and say we're going to get a new source, and we're going to pick the web. We're going to go to the same exact URL that I was just showing, where we've built our REST service and exposed it out. We'll go into Power BI, we'll put the same exact URL in. And something I want to add here is I don't have any security or anything on my REST service right now. The product has all that stuff. It can handle in the security and models you want, but for purposes of demo, I have no security on it. And Power BI will handle it. Everything from hitting the advanced button and choosing headers, doing standard basic auth, to being able to go into their little M language and do any authentication you need to do. But for this purpose, we'll just hit our service. It will query MVConnect and pull in that same table. Now, what this product really is now, what Power Query has turned into is it really is an ETL tool, and ETL is extract, transform, and load. So this tool is more than just go to get data anymore. It is designed to help you translate and do any changes you need to do to the data. So in the old days in Excel, you would go in, get the data, pull it into an Excel, and then start cleaning it up in Excel. Now you can do it right here in the query tool and do things like remove duplicates, merge columns, make some changes, force a date. All that stuff is available now in this tool. And so what it did is it queried that same RESTful service that we saw right here. And it says, I see the first thing is something called records, and it's a list. And when it says a list, it's seeing what essentially is our pick multi-values. And so in this case, it's going to be multiple records. So what you do is you click on it. It will go in, it reads the table again. And it's going to start running us through the transformation. So here, real quick, there's usually a box here on the right that shows you the work it's doing, and I closed it earlier, so I'm just opening it back up. Okay, well, I can't figure out that, so we'll just skip on that. But as I'm sitting here, you can see that it shows me all my records. So what I'm going to do here, because I don't have this right bar, I'm going to start this again because it's a two-step process, and since I don't have the right bar, I can't tell it to delete what I just did. So again, we'll do this one more time. There we go. So now it has my bar on the right. So I'm going to say I need to convert this to a table. I'm going to say OK. Once it does this, and see on the right bar here, it's actually showing your ETL steps you're doing. So we got the source, did a navigation, we converted to a table. I click here, and it's found all our columns. And this last one is our repeated invoice items. This is the problem we have with pick with our multi-values. So what I'm going to tell it to do is import all my fields. And what I need to do here is take that navigation out. Yep. So basically from here, I wanted to convert it to a table. Okay. I had one extra step over there when I did it the first time. So it was only importing one item out of the file. And it's still just showing me one item. So I may have goosed something over there, but in another page, I'm going to show you where I've already imported all this stuff, and you'll be able to see it working correctly. But here's the goal here is when we get to the items column, it recognizes our pick multi-value. So when you click on it, you say, what do you want to do? And I say, I want to expand it to new rows, and that is going to normalize the data. This is the big trick here, is that it now took R1 pick multi-value, and it actually expanded it out to 3 items. So it actually did the normalization. This is the big key here, and this is the big power. And when I look at this, I know exactly why we're only seeing one record is that we had told our query to only look at one record. So if I go in here and take that off and redo this, it'll pull in all our orders now. And you can actually jump over here and you can actually see the debugging mode of the MVConnect thing running over here, where it's actually answering these calls and giving data back. Okay, just a second. There she goes. So now when I look at this and get down to here, we should see all our orders and see it has normalized all the data. Now again, to what I was saying earlier, is there's a lot of stuff you can do in here. All the stuff you normally do in Excel, you can do up here. You can do splitting columns, you can correct data, you can adjust data, make it force into a date. There's a lot of power here. And again, this is all in Excel now. But when you get done, you just click close and apply. And it will query this in and essentially brings it in and puts it on the second tab, and you now have the data available to work with. So again, it queried the system again. And if I go to my second tab now, I'm going to see what is essentially your Excel sheet. You go to the third tab, you're going to see the almost like the old Access system where it's showing your table. So if you were then to import 2 or 3 more tables, you could actually drag and create your associations here. I'll show you that on a more advanced one later. But then when you just go up here and you start building your charts. And so over here, it's just like Excel. You've got all your tables and controls. What I'm going to demonstrate here is we're going to say, hey, we're going to bring in a data table. I'm going to go over here and say, I want to see order ID. I want to see order date. I want to see in the items, I want to get and see how it's seeing the multi-values, customer ID. So you start building your controls, and then you'll go in here and say, hey, I want to add a new visual. Well, that one is not working very well, but what I'll do is we'll just jump over to the pre-made one, and I can show you now what your goal is and what you start getting as a final source. So in this example, I've already gone into the Northwind database, which is all my pick data, and I've imported all my different tables using that same ETL tool we just looked at. So here I have orders, and instead of putting each one of the individual items on here, I did them over here as a separate table. So it looks just exactly the way Excel wants it. So I still queried pick here and only brought in the header data. Over here, I brought in all the detail lines and I linked them all together. The product ID is here, but the name of the product's not here. That's over here in the products database. So it ends up looking just like Excel. I'm gonna start like SQL server at this point. You can go over here to this tab and look at each one of your tables. And then on this tab, you start building all your visuals. Now, I'm gonna give you a quick overview of what, as I understand how Power BI is doing stuff, is that as you're creating these report tabs, things you do within this report will actually relate and work with each other. So when I go over to the salesperson one I created, I would have gone in here and dropped a few different tables. I go over here, and I can see that, I've dropped these fields. So this one here is by salesperson, and it's totaled up the total and the number of orders. Here I've done companies. Here I've listed all the invoices. Here I've listed the invoice detail lines. And then I did 2 graphics of the orders and by salesperson and by company as a chart, with both showing the dollar amounts and the line chart is showing number of orders. Now here's where Power BI just gets unbelievably powerful. Without me doing anything other than dropping these charts on the screen, I go and click on one of these, and it will apply a filter automatically to all the other controls on this page. So when I click on Peacock, it has taken every one of these other ones and narrowed them down on a filter. So now this one is showing all the companies that made up Peacock's numbers. And the same thing here for the orders that made up his numbers. And it left the graphs showing them the original numbers, but in a bolded color is the ones that making up our filter. And then I can go one level deeper to say, for example, this particular order, I click on it, and it has narrowed down the invoice detail line to just show me those items. So again, this I hope you gives an idea of why Power BI is starting to become so popular. That it is an incredibly powerful tool and extremely interactive without doing any coding. And everything we're doing here is hitting our pick data. And as soon as I tell this item to do a refresh, it is going to go out and hit the pick database and start querying in the latest information and put it into this table. So I only want to hit a little bit of the surface of what Power BI can do functionally, but what we're really demonstrating is that we're able to get our pick data as a normal data source and take advantage of all these great features within this product. So as this is updating, it's going to have to update 5 or 6 tables. What we would normally do is once you're done with this, you have 2 options. If you're using the free product, because everything we're looking at here right now is free within Power BI, you could save this just like you would an Excel document and send it to somebody else who can open it up and look at all your pre-built data and all your pre-built charts based on the data that's in it right now. If you told them they can hit the refresh button, well, they have to be able to call that same RESTful service in your company, and it would update. But you may have a challenge if you send the sheet out to 100 people and you have 100 people all updating their spreadsheet off your pick data. And that's where really the Office 365 starts to come in and putting it up in their cloud and then using a shared data set, and everybody's using a shared set of reports and charts. So let me go up and show you what that ends up looking like. So we go up into our Office 365 portal, and I would have sent this chart off to a colleague who then went off and started creating some analytics and some charts off the data. And that one just bounced back that it's done, and started creating dashboards and reports. So I'm over here now in the website product, and I'm going to click here, and I'm going to get into a web version of different grids and controls that somebody built against that same data. And so here's top 10 customers, here's a heat map or a location map of where you're seeing your orders, top 10 products, a KPI, here's your top salespeople. I mean, very, very nice controls. Where the product even becomes even more impressive is you can actually go up here and ask questions. So I can say total orders, and you'll actually watch it as I'm doing it, building controls for you right there. So I'll say total orders by, shipped country. I think I got the name of that wrong. Shipped country. And you see it's building a chart on the fly, guessing what it thinks I want. I'll say as a map, and it changed the visual right to a map. So it's the sophistication of the product is incredible. And then as you build these, just writing your little statement, you can then tell it, hey, I wish to save it. Let's go look at the data that was behind it. Very, very impressive impressive product. And this is reports. If I go up to here, I will see a, this is, okay, that was a dashboard. This here is the reports, which is actually what we created in Power BI. So again, this is a series of reports that was created, and then the dashboard that you saw a second ago was tied to these. So again, you're seeing all the controls here, all the same things we built in Power BI. They're all here web-based, interactive, and then if you buy the Office 365 subscriptions, all this stuff can then be shared out to your colleagues, and you're all running off the same exact data. And then you go into the data area of the product, and you can set your refresh rates for the data. So if I go down here and say I wish to look at my data sets for my cloud, you can actually then go in and here we go. So we go to data sets, and you can actually go in here and with the settings tool, you can go in and say, hey, I wish to refresh the data on a schedule. I want it done daily, every 15 minutes. It's a a very sophisticated product. If your data is not exposed on the internet, they have a gateway product. So you turn on the gateway, turn this on, you install a product right on your server. You set up all the security, and then it will let Office 365 reach inside your network and get the data. Very impressive product. When you're getting into the real slick, what the dashboards can end up looking like, they have some great samples. So if I go over here to like sales and marketing, it gives you a good example of a lot of the grids and controls you can build with your data. So with that, let me jump over to the RESTful stuff and talk about that real quick. Now that this is updated. So I told this to go in and update on my data, so now I have all my new stuff in here, and that same ask a question works down here at this level. So I can go, when I'm in here, you create a new page, do your ask a question, and you can use these tools from here also. So total orders by employee as table. And I also want to show employee first name. And I think I need to put that up here on this field. So I hope it gives you a basic overview of the items the product has and the stuff it can do. What I want to do now is jump and let's talk about some of the challenges and other stuff that can come into the product and where the roadmaps are at to help you get where you want to go with the product. So I go back to our slides, and let's first talk about Power BI roadmap and some of the issues you're going to run into. Power BI desktop, which you're seeing on the top left of the roadmap, reports and dashboards and what's called data sets. The data sets is what we're pulling in through the demonstration I just gave you, and it works very much like Excel. So if you've already done reporting in Excel, you can't pull more than 10, 20, 30,000 rows into Excel before it starts having some issues. And I think the newer ones can go bigger, but usually you can't pull in your entire database. So I get this asked a lot, is this really like a data warehouse where I can pull all my data in? Power BI has options for that through Azure SQL storage today, but they're moving with their roadmap to give us the feature to let us bring in our RESTful services in that model. So let me talk to that a little more. So today you're going to do Power BI dashboards and reports. You need to think a lot like Excel and do it in the sizes you would do like an Excel, and the data sets you're pulling in need to be narrowed down to a size just like you would do in Excel. So that's how that piece is working. And the Power Query is where we did the ETL work. Where they're going with the product is this thing called data flows, which sits here, and the Azure Data Lake storage down below is building a pretty inexpensive storage area where you can take that same transformation work you did for your data set and load it into Azure storage. And when it's in Azure storage, you can now query much larger data sets. You can bring all your data in there. And with their extensions and their languages around here, they have a little M language, you can start doing things like just update the data that's been changed versus loading everything. And so if you have a very large system, you have millions and millions of orders, this is where you can start doing that transformation and get it interactive. Now, it's important to note that this is available already today, but you would normally take your data, convert it, just as we did, but push it up into Azure SQL, and then Power BI would query that. Here very shortly, with this feature, we're going to be able to use our ETL layer to load it right in to Azure storage and get the same exact feature without having to move into Azure SQL. And hopefully that makes sense. And this is a huge a step and improvement for how the product is working. So it's important to see the roadmap is there. Today, you would be building more reduced RESTful services that's producing more minimized or just the data that you need for the report you need. So that's the roadmap, very important piece. So as you get deeper into it, and just keep in mind that wasn't just even a PIC issue. They have connectors to get into other products like ConnectWise or QuickBooks, and all the third-party products were having an issue in this area. So this is how it's going to be resolved for all the products such as ours or anything else. Now, if you're not a technical person, you've been watching what I was doing, and while the Power BI and the query probably made sense, if you don't have programmers, you're probably still wondering, well, how do I get that RESTful service and get that data out? Something we're working on is something we're called maybe MV query or MV schema, but it's the ability to be able to do our normal pick sort statements and have it produce JSON. And that's what I'm showing you here on the screen. And the goal of this is to not require then a developer to go in and build the RESTful objects. If you're already moving forward with building new UIs and want to do the machine-to-machine communication, then you're going to have to programmatically build those REST services because you're doing updates. Therefore, that path is the path I would recommend. But if you're on a site and you just want to do reporting, then this is a product that we're going to be working on in which we can automatically transform the data. It takes some schema work. It's not a automatic thing, but we are doing it. And in fact, the demo that I was presenting, because we've already got this working in jBASE, is actually using that technology. So if we were to go back and look at the sample I was doing, and we were to go in and say, what does the data queries look like? For each and every one of these, when you go in and look at how we pulled in the data, it is actually querying it with a select statement. So this entire demo against that Northwind database was requiring zero programming on the pick side. It's something that we don't have available yet, but it is something we are most definitely working on for the sites that don't wish to build the UI type stuff. This will be an option to solve this issue. Jump back to the presentation and talk about the final steps. So call to action. Number one, we have MVConnect. There's a it's available for most of the PIC platforms: Universe, Unidata, D3, MV. I don't think MVBase, but Unidata. It works on Windows and Linux, and a real key piece I like to point about what we're doing here that's a little different than the other, because there are other solutions out there that can produce RESTful output, RESTful data. And keep in mind that if you are already using one of those products, then everything I showed you in Power BI will actually talk to those also and bring the data in. But what's a little different about ours is that it is cross-platform. So anything you're doing on one platform, you can switch later to another platform, and all that code continues to operate. That was a primary goal for us on this. We didn't want you to get locked in to a particular vendor for the particular way they produce this. Since it already is a pretty open standard, let's keep it, the solution, relatively open. Here's a link to our MV documentation. We have examples, links to videos showing how you can use MVConnect to build your new UIs and applications, and also do the Power BI work. And then even if you're not deep into the stuff I was talking about with the direct pick, I highly recommend that if you haven't started using Power BI and you're a big-time Excel user, that you really need to go and look at the product. Power BI can bring in all the original data sources. So everything I showed going against JSON, it will do it against a CSV file. It will do it against your ODBC sources. It will also let you connect to Excel documents and use them as a shared source. So for example, when I showed the demonstration where I've created this data set of the orders coming out of the PIC system, but let's just say you had some additional information that wasn't in PIC that you wish to also report on. Well, you can create your Excel sheet. So let's say, for example, you wanted to do the birth dates for all your employees, your salespeople. Well, you can go into Excel and create that Excel document where it had the employee IDs and their birth dates. You can then save it in Office 365, go into Power BI. Well, that's with the desktop version. You can just attach to it right there, or in Office 365, you put it up as a source and attach to it. It shows up once you attach to it as another data source, just like our PICs were. And then you just do the association line. And as soon as you do the association line and go up to your chart builders, date of birth becomes available. And that is a huge, huge power. You can actually even go get things like weather information. So there's public ones you can go get and say, hey, I wish to get the current temperature or weather in the current city that I'm shipping to. And then you can go to your Power BI reporting and show where your orders are and what the weather looks like where you're shipping them to. So the ability to also combine data sources is huge. So I highly, highly recommend you start looking at the product and start getting some familiarity with it, especially since it's free. The final thing is, I'd like to mention the multi-value market update. Save the date. It is going to be December 13th at 9:30 a.m. Paul GOB will be giving a multi-value market update and talk where the market's going, some of our product initiatives and other items and areas of where the market's going. So in conclusion, I'd like to say thank you everybody for coming in and listening to this presentation. I hope it piques your interest and what you can do. The key thing I like to always remind is that we're attempting to do things like everybody else does, and by working on this model, which is objects and JSON and RESTful services, I'm hoping you're seeing where we can definitely start using out-of-the-box tools and bring in normal resources to get things done. So again, thank you everybody, and catch you next time.